Hi guys, I hope you're well. My name is Tom Blakemore and I'm a primary school teacher here in Dubai. This video is going to delve into what a KHDA inspection is, along with some advice and tips for you to take away. So to start off with, what is KHDA? KHDA stands for Knowledge and Human Development Authority, and they are essentially very similar to Ofsted in the UK. They look at the standards across all schools in Dubai and they ensure that the standards meet certain expectations and support with developing those if that is not the case. They grade schools on a range of different categories that we will look at in a second. In other areas or other Emirates, there are similar types of bodies. There will be ADEC in Abu Dhabi and similar things in other Emirates too. So to start off with, what is a KHDA inspection? So a KHDA inspection is a 4-day inspection that typically starts at 8 AM on the Monday and runs through till Thursday, where typically things finish around the afternoon. Now, the inspection team will be made up of 8 inspectors usually, and those inspectors will normally be ex-Ofsted or current Ofsted inspectors who come to look at the standards of the school through the KHDA inspection framework. And that framework is essentially given to schools prior to the inspection, and they will inspect the school based on those things. They will look for a number of different things, looking at all sorts of subjects such as the core ones: English, maths, science, also subjects such as MSCS, which you'll be able to see in the background, which stands for Moral, Social, Cultural Studies, and they will also look at those other core subjects such as Arabic, Islamic too. That's not only things that they look at, they also look at the general standards of the school, looking at things like governance, looking at parent communication, general well-being, a range of different things. Now, normally to prepare for these inspections, schools are given 5 days notice. Compared to the UK, that's quite a lot of time. In the past, schools were given 2 to 3 weeks notice. Now, in a previous video, I talked about how I needed to prepare for those KHDA inspections. One of the steps was preparing this folder, and if you want to go and check out that video, feel free to do that up in the corner, where we'll talk about all those different things that I had to do. But we'll cover that in this video too. While schools will need to prepare these big folders, schools will prepare huge documents. One is what's called a school evaluation form, or SEF, and that looks at the evaluation of the school, their self-evaluation, as the name suggests, alongside the framework, so where they think they fall in certain categories. The school improvement plan, or SIP, delves into the school's improvements that they have made since the last inspection. Now, for many schools, they might not have been inspecting during the times where they were online learning, so they will have lots of things that they have improved on, and they can talk about the journey, and that is what they will do during the inspection, is have those meetings and talk about many of those different things. During an inspection, a school can be given one of 6 gradings: outstanding, very good, good, acceptable, weak, and very weak. Typically, when a school goes for their first inspection, they will be looking to go for good. They won't go for outstanding, they will look to progress. Normally, through each inspection, a school will progress on 1 grade. It is possible to go from, let's say, 2020 to go from good, 2021 very good, 2022 outstanding, but that is rare because it's something that is quite challenging to jump multiple grades. During an inspection, the teams will look for a range of different things. They will look at teaching and learning, they will look at inclusion, they will look at the ways that we support and develop the curriculum for Emirati students. They will also do the same for those children who are gifted and talented. They will look at things like well-being to see how we support children with their well-being, parent communication, the way that the school is governed, leadership, and many other factors. To be able to check those standards, inspectors will do a number of different things. To start with, of course, observations. An observation is counted if it is longer than 20 minutes. Some inspectors will stay for the whole lesson. When they come into lessons, they will of course observe the lesson, sometimes talk to students, and what I was surprised with, they will look at folders too. In addition to this, they will of course have interviews with leadership, senior leadership and middle leadership, specifically talking to those middle leaders who are in charge of subjects such as English, maths, science. In addition to this, they will also have meetings with people like school council to really investigate and understand the school at a deeper level. As teachers, we were told that KHDA were looking for specific things on certain days. They would also, of course, be looking to make sure that we're meeting the standards and the framework that is set by KHDA. For example, on Monday we were told that they were looking for things like innovation, how we try and create really engaging lessons. On Tuesday, it was curriculum design or something along those lines, making sure that we're adapting the curriculum for those children who have special educational needs and disabilities, but also making sure that we're adapting the curriculum for those children who are gifted and talented, Emirati if that is the case, and those sorts of things too. The observations will go on from Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. Typically, from my experience, they finish on the Thursday quite early. They inspected kind of 8 till 9ish, and then they spent the rest of the time feeding back to relevant leaders, but they were actually off site at 12 o'clock. That is just my experience with that. What do teachers need to do in preparation for inspection? These things. Now, as I said before, I did create a video all about what I needed to create. So inside here, you have a number of different things. While I can't show you what is inside the folder, I can show you the contents page. You've got class list, timetable, current week's lesson plans, IEPs, pupil profiles and Emirati trackers, and then of course a seating plan. Now, as we're looking through those things, I was quite surprised because it's a lot of work to create these. You've got to create really in-depth lesson plans, and when you're creating those lesson plans, you need to make sure that there's all sorts of things that are catered for. You're looking for things like real-life links, how the curriculum and lessons are adapted for those children who have needs, and IEPs, individual education plans, making sure that we're looking for things like how we're suiting the lesson towards certain groupings based on the data that you've got. Of course, you're then looking for the lesson itself, making sure that it's got beginning, middle, end, assessment opportunity, question opportunities, making sure that all those things are covered too. As I delve into this, we're also looking at things like EAL. They also want to know things like whether or not we have any Emirati pupils, SEND, of course, as I said before, gifted and talented, and then looking for those adaptations in those lessons. Now, when the inspector came into my lesson, he went straight to the back, and the first thing that he did was open up this folder. He then went and proceeded to take out the lesson and really look through it, and they were looking at data and what I was going to be doing in the lesson, and I was quite surprised that that was the thing that was really focused on the most. They did go and see some of the children and look at some of the books too, but yeah, real delve into these folders. Of course, you're kind of like, oh, I'm preparing all of this, you know, what are the chances of me being seen? Am I going to, you know, have the opportunity for this to even be looked at? But yeah, they do. However, it is worth saying if you are in a big school, some schools out here in Dubai are of course 10 plus forms or 10 plus classes in a year group, which means that there is much less chance of you being seen. It's worth noting that 5 out of the 6 members of year 6 were seen, including myself. 2 of those individuals were seen on multiple occasions. One person had an inclusion child which is focused on, and what that means is each inspector has an inclusion child that they are going to essentially follow around and drop into certain lessons. So it might be a specialist lesson, an Arabic lesson, an English lesson, and they're just looking to see how that child is catered for so that they can follow that child's journey. So this does take a lot of time to set up, as I've mentioned before, but I've been inspected twice now, and those 2 observations that people came into, they looked at these folders. So it's worthwhile knowing that you don't just create them for no reason. Although this sounds like a tremendous amount of work, and it is, to be fair, it is worth saying that once these things are set up, the actual week of KHDA is much smoother because you've spent all of the time preparing, making sure your classroom's looking wonderful, everything's kind of considered to a fine detail, and therefore that week goes really smoothly. So yeah, hard initially, but then that actual week of goes quite smoothly because you're just kind of focusing on lessons as and when they come. So number 1, start as you mean to go on. So with things like planning, get that done as soon as possible because it makes it easier for the kind of remainder of the week. If you know what your planning teams are, what you need to go and plan, get it done. Don't kind of go, oh, I'll wait till later on in the week, because what will happen is people like senior leadership will realize that there might be things that need to get done, and you'll have things that crop up towards the end of the week, and then all of a sudden it becomes a weekend job. I was fortunate that while I did come in, I only really came in for a couple of hours to finish up some bits that I hadn't quite done, but that is because I'd started really hard and then I was able to kind of teeter out towards the end and just kind of focus on a couple of other little bits and things. Number 2, this is one where I need to kind of come in and say this. Think closely about your seating plan. Now, as I said, some inspectors are ex-Ofsted inspectors. Some of the inspectors are a little bit older. Some are coming up to 80. Now, what this can mean, and generally, even if it's not an age thing, think about your seating plan and who you have around the inspector's chair, if you like. So I put this folder on the inspector's chair and it was positioned in a location. Now, of course, some inspectors will come in and they will just kind of float around. Yeah, that's fine. But just think carefully about who you put around the inspector, because they're more likely the children that the inspector's going to go to talk to. They might not, but yeah, it's just something to consider. Don't have to, but it's something that I found was worth considering. Number 3 is to try where you can to save energy. There might be lessons in the week before that you can try and be a bit conservative with your energy, because the week of the inspection is intense in terms of teaching. The week before is of course intense in terms of preparation. So if you can have those kind of lessons where children can get on with activities so that you can focus on other bits and pieces, whether it's sorting out classroom, take that time, because that can be really helpful too. 4, keep your classroom tidy. Now, my classroom isn't always tidy. I'm kind of looking around at the moment and some paper, whatever. First impressions count at the end of the day. Something that I have to keep reminding myself to try and make sure that my classroom's tidy and things aren't on the floor. First impressions count in terms of organisation, and yeah, people will make snapshot decisions and kind of judgments. It's always hard to hear, but there's some truth behind it. So just try and keep on top of organisation and tidiness in general. Okay, next is feedback won't happen. You've got to take into account that these people are going to see a tremendous amount of lessons. Now, as a result of that, they're not going to always get a chance to give feedback on the lessons that they see. It is possible that they won't even remember the lessons that they see, especially if it's towards the end of the week and they've observed you at the start of the week. It's an incredibly busy week. You're going to be incredibly busy. There isn't going to be that opportunity for people to feed that information back to you. Next tip is to know your data. This sounds obvious, but it is important because some inspectors will ask about data, why certain children are certain things, where they are, why you've differentiated in certain ways. It can happen, and it has happened from other people and what they've told me, where inspectors have asked them, you know, oh, where are your visual learners? Why have you done this for a certain child? So it's important that you're able to back that up based on the groupings that you've put the children in, and to kind of justify why you've done things within those lessons. Number 8 is that inspectors look for engagement. Always really hard. I think during my last lesson that someone came into, perhaps engagement could have been higher. That could have happened through making sure that we had some sort of, whiteboard activity where children are working together collaboratively. That engagement is always really important because, again, it comes back to snapshot judgments, and it also comes to the framework that KHDA put out in terms of engagement. Yeah, engagement's a really good one to indicate strong lessons, and again, that's what inspectors will look for. Next tip is what we call progress pit stops or progress stops. So it's just those opportunities to make sure that the children are stopping, and you as a teacher can check on children's progress, how they're feeling, and it gives the inspector an idea that you're kind of looking at progress, and you can use some of the language that they are looking for. So, I can see that most of the children in this classroom are making tremendous progress in getting to this task. This means that we're all working really well. Let's see if we can do this. And that's your opportunity to kind of give that feedback and to play that game, if you like, in terms of the vocabulary that you choose to use with the children, try and ensure that the children are making that progress. And that's just general good practice as it is anyway. Final tip is to look after yourself. It is worth mentioning that an inspection is just a few days, and it only really gives such a small snapshot into your year as a teacher and your time with your class. Obviously, you spend the whole year with your class. Some lessons are tremendous and amazing and perfect. Some lessons might not be so good, and unfortunately, an inspector only ever gets a chance to see that small snapshot. Now, you will do your best to prepare for that small snapshot, but it is important to put the inspection to the back of your mind once it happens, so that you can also take that time for yourself to look after yourself. It can be an intense process, so make sure you are looking after yourself too. Hopefully this video has given you some insight into what KHDA is, what the inspection process involves. If you do have any questions, make sure you ask them down in the comment box. I can hopefully answer those questions. If you are interested in teaching in Dubai, I've created a guide all about teaching in Dubai, which can support you with the process of moving out here and getting a job too. So hopefully you can check that one out in my website, teachtraveltriumph.com. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like it, and hopefully by subscribing, you'll see future videos. But until that time, I'm out.